Hi everyone, welcome back to yet another video. In this video, I'll be describing my journey in detail and just give you a bit of a comprehensive guide if you guys are planning for US or Canadian or both medical licensing exams. Hi, I'm Dilshad. I'm an international medical graduate. I came to Canada in year 2020, which was mid of COVID, and COVID was rampant everywhere. And I just give you a peek in my journey of how I planned my exams, and I managed to clear both Canadian and United States licensing exams under a year. So in this video, I'll be describing my journey. This might turn out to be a bit of a lengthy video, but I'm sure you'll take some motivation and aim for your dream residency. So I'll begin with the presentation now. So some of the contents of how I plan to cover this video is broken down into these topics. I will discuss my introduction and background. What are the routes of licensing in North America? What are the examinations that are there and Canadian pathways? What resources I used? What was my approximate cost? And at the end, what it takes to clear these exams in like a very short time, which is less than 1 year for me. So a bit of background from my side. I am an international medical graduate. I was a pathologist in India and I landed in Canada in March 2020. Interestingly, this was like exactly 2 hours before Canada announced an official lockdown because of COVID. And I did my pathology from CMC Ludhiana and it finished in 2016, followed by a fellowship in hematopathology, which I finished from Tata Memorial Hospital in 2018. And when I was in India, I knew that I have to come to Canada because my spouse was here. And in the meantime, I was planning in 2019, just discovering what observerships are available and where I can apply. So I was lucky to get one of the pathology observerships from UHN, or University Health Network in Canada. But unfortunately, because it was COVID and at that time all the observerships were cancelled, the hospitals had no visitor policy. So overall, it was a very tough, morbid, and a very depressive kind of atmosphere because of COVID. So I utilized that time to read about the application process, what are the eligibility criterias and official websites, and getting every document in order, which means basically your medical degrees, your CV, everything in order. So my timeline, you will note this in the latter part of the presentation that I wanted to finish my exams in a record period of time. I didn't want to be, no offense, like people who take like 3 or 4 or 5 years, because for me, if it takes a lot of time, I lose zeal and enthusiasm to finish the exam. And I was getting back to my books after almost 8 to 10 years of gap. So I wanted to do pathology, that I was sure, in North America, be it Canada or US. I wanted to finish my exams in record period of time. And I thought to myself that I'm picking up books after such a long time. So I might as well, take chances against my odds and give both the exams at the same time. So I read all the forums that were there at that time on Facebook, on Reddit, some YouTube videos. There was a lot of material for USMLEs, but there was very less for Canadian licensing exams. And I think essentially that has been the main motivation for me to start this channel, to give you guys a lot of information for Canadian licensing exams and US, and both for the people who are interested. So I got my paperwork ready by December 2020. That meant like source verification from MCCQE and sending my documents to ECFMG and receiving the scheduling date and scheduling permit from the for QE1 and USMLE steps. And I was doing preparation side by side, and the timeline I wanted to prepare was, as you all know, at this stage of preparation, step 2 CK and QE1 have a similar subject overlap. So I thought that it makes sense for me to schedule the exams 1 month apart from each other, because that knowledge will be pretty fresh at that time. Things usually not every time go as per plan. I was stuck with COVID in Jan 2021, and the preparation for QE1 took a hit. And for me, Canada was always the main front. Like I always wanted to do a residency in Canada as compared to US initially when I started out. So I decided that QE1 I'll postpone it and I'll take step 2 CK first. So I gave my step 2 CK, and I will discuss in the further video of what my timeline precisely was, and I have like dates on my certificates which will give you an idea. So when it comes to planning, and this is something that I did as well, and I will guide all of you guys to do the same. To create a study plan, you need to set realistic goals. You need to make a study schedule that is comprehensive, that covers all the subjects, but helps you finish all the subjects in record period of time. And you have to identify your strengths and play by them, and identify your weaknesses. For me, I used to find like cardiology and neurology like very scary subjects. So I thought that these are the subjects I want to do first, so that that fear is out of my mind. So that is something which is a proper planning. So if you are planning to set out your goals, realistic goal can be that I want to give my exam by 31st of March. You have a date, you have a time, and you have like an approximate month divided into days when you want to finish your question bank, what time you want to have for revision. And I promise to be more regular with the videos, and I will make one of the videos on detailed presentation for how to create a study plan. So some of the things that you need to keep in mind, and these were the things that I had, were like exam. So do you want to take Canadian or US or both the exams? Because preparations and resources are a bit different. When you want to take these exams, and what time gap do you want to schedule amongst both the exams? And when you come to resources, this is very important, because if you're choosing a Q bank, that has to be a reliable question bank. You should not go back to back always and checking the answers because you are unsure if the question bank has said a right answer or a wrong. So it should be reliable. It should be, that question bank should be done by millions of people who are preparing for this exam. It should get updated regularly, and it should have closest resemblance to the main exam. Books, I do not recommend it, because most of us have done, all of us in fact have done our MBBS, which is basically 5.5 years of study of all the medical subjects. So we have read the standard textbooks, we have a basic knowledge, and it doesn't make sense to go back to those textbooks again and spend like 5 years again reading the same textbooks. So for this preparation, I recommend a retrospective approach, which essentially means doing a Q bank, going through the detailed explanation of a Q bank, and referring books like Master the Boards or First Aid, which are synoptic textbooks for rapid revision, only if you do not understand a concept. And coaching, I've been asked this question so many times, and I'll put the link of my Telegram channel down below. That do we require coaching? And I'll be honest, the uncomfortable answer is no. If you are able to maintain your discipline and you're able to follow your timetable on time, you do not require coaching. If you feel that you need like a refresher course or a high yield course, that is a separate issue. But I think coaching is not at all an absolute necessary or a clinching factor for these exams. And discipline, as we all know, is something that is a bridge between your goals and your accomplishment. So that is one of the things that is the main key. So Canadian exams, they usually have two exams. One of them is qualifying exam, which is QE1, and the second is NAC-OSCE, which is a skills exam. For qualifying exam, we have MCQs, which are 210. This exam is for 4.5 hours, and we have 38 CDMs, which are clinical decision making exams, questions, sorry. And this will be phasing out of QE1 infrastructure from 2025. So all of you who are going to prepare and appear for exam in 2025, you will not have CDMs. So CDMs is usually when you type in the answer, it can be regarding a treatment, a management, or diagnosis. So this exactly is a snapshot from the MCCQE website on what topics basically they ask. And if you can see on the screen, a lot of weightage is given on acute and chronic as well as psychosocial aspects, and it also deals with a lot of ethics. But the main focus is on assessment or management of a patient, how you communicate with the patient. So in these exams, as compared to US exams, ethics, professional behavior, and communication is pretty important. So my concerns, again coming back to my journey, I was overwhelmed because I was getting back to books after a long time. I didn't want to waste time, because if you guys are very well aware, every year that you miss taking an exam adds a lot of competitors to that pool. So your chances technically get reduced. And as we all know, it's very tough to multitask managing a career and a job and house and everything else. And it was COVID, it was a depressive time. I'm a learner who can go out in the library and sit, but I didn't have the access to public libraries. It was overall a very depressive atmosphere. And then there is a lot of focus to uh, do a lot of stuff in a limited amount of time. You have to prepare a good CV, you have to do some care of healthcare experience, some kind of job or remote research to showcase that you've done something in North American healthcare system. It can be Canada, it can be US, it can be anything. So my resources, and I intend making a separate video for Canadian exams and US exams for the resources that I used. But just because this is a very comprehensive video for my resources, so I basically for QE1 and Step 2 CK used UWorld question bank, and I purchased that question bank online. I only studied Toronto notes very selectively. I studied ethics, psychiatry, pediatrics, ENT and OB-GYN, and family medicine from Toronto notes. It's a great book, and there is a particular way of reading this book. We do not absolutely need to read this book cover to cover. Again, I will promise to be regular with the videos and make one of the comprehensive videos of how to read Toronto notes effectively for QE1. The other book can be Master the Board Step 2 CK or Master the Board Step 3 for certain exam topics like OB-GYN or pediatrics. Ethics and population health are very heavily tested. Ethics by Conrad Fisher and Doing Right are some of the books that I read. I personally loved Ethics by Conrad Fisher because the text is in the question answer type of format, and it really helps you answering the question and getting the concept. There is population health, which is in AFMC primer. If you go on Google and you'll see one of the Canadian statistics and healthcare which is given. And there is CMPA website also. You can Google that and see. It's all about professionalism, doctor ethics, etc. And screening guidelines, I refer to Health Canada for Canadian guidelines, and for USPTF, which is United States Preventive Task Forces for US guidelines. Internet is a great resource, and I was happy that when I was studying for my MBBS and MD, we didn't have a lot of resources, but now YouTube is full of great videos. One of them is my absolute favorite, which is shout out to Dr. Randy Neal, who has excellent videos on biostats and so many great topics for Step 1, Step 2 CK, Step 3 that I can't praise him enough. And I very strongly suggest all of you guys to read, to go through his videos. There is one of the pages that is Dirty Medicine, to go through that. Online MedEd is an absolutely free resource, and the topics are divided among subjects. This can also help you. Up to date, to be honest, it's an expensive purchase. I did not purchase it. I just had a free trial and then Google. But I strongly recommend Dr. Randy Neal and Dirty Medicine and Divine Podcast and Online MedEd as well. So these are like absolutely free resources. Coming to the preparatory products, so some of the resources are the ones that are like preparatory products. These are official, these are the practice tests that are available on the official website of MCCQE. Again, I'll say this, that these are expensive resources, but to be honest, these are the best resources for Canadian exams. Now you'll argue that we can't afford this much, and I agree with that. I've gone through the same process. But if you can spend money on something after QBank, this is the resource, because this very strongly imitates the main exam. So if you can't buy all the tests on their website, official website, just make sure that you do like at least a full length assessment or a PE Lite for the exam. For NACOSCI, there are a lot of expensive courses that are available. I could not attend it because I was giving both NACOSCI and QE1 during October. Yes, in my time, Omicron variant had come, so NACOSCI was postponed in October. So I just gave 1 or 2 mocks, and it was a time in September for my application submission. So I was preparing for that as well, and I strongly recommend practicing for this exam on your own. I used to practice with like my spouse, like my husband and my brothers as well, so that they give me a good feedback on how I was like a doctor to them. So some resources, there is a very good book which is available online, which is NACOSCI Comprehensive Review. I had very short time, so I just read this book. It's like a 70-80 pages long book, cover to cover. It's a great book for rapid revision. Edmonton Manual, Dr. Basil Notes. To be honest, these are available online in PDF forms. and there are some MCC official videos on YouTube. So exam day experience, honestly, if you ask me, I felt like very vague. I thought I was only guessing, and I thought I had failed, but I scored pretty good on all the exams. My score on QE1 was 290. My score on NAC was 1434, and I scored in 240s in all my steps, like step 1, step 2, step 3. So it was a good experience overall. For people who are appearing for step 1, usually the resources that I use are very famously called as UFAP, which is UWorld, First Aid and Pathoma. And yeah, this is mostly that exam because I couldn't study much because I was doing my job also side by side. And for step 2 CK, apart from the resources listed on the screen, I made notes from one-liners or some tough explanations that I found for the last day revision. As we all know, the structure of the exam is usually 7 to 9 hours. There is 1 hour of break. And in US, the questions are split into blocks, and you can break your 1 hour break into different slots. Like you can take 4 breaks for 15 minutes, or you can take 3 breaks for 20 minutes and vice versa, or like that. And in MCCQE1, there is there is a 4.5 hour duration for 210 MCQs and 3.5 hours for 38 CDMs. And I think there is a gap of 45 minutes in between as a break. For proficiency tests, which we are required to take now as a part of both Canadian and United Healthcare licensing exams, are OET and IELTS. These are English speaking exams, and there are a lot of free YouTube videos that are available online. For OET, there are official site videos and sample test papers, and there are sample papers and E2 test prep videos. These are all free videos, and I don't think you need to spend anything out of pocket for them. One thing I want to emphasize is everything for the exam preparation goes side by side. So it can't be that you're focusing on the exam for like an year and a half and then you take like an year and a half for research work and observerships, because everything goes side by side. So if you have an aim and you have a well-defined goal, you have to multitask along with. So I started emailing pathologists both in United States and Canada, and to be honest, I had emailed about 90 emails in a matter of 3 months. It was just a cold email telling them that I'm a pathologist from India and I'm preparing for exams. And I think fortunately for me, due to COVID, I could not go. The borders were closed. So I was asking them for some kind of remote research. And two United States pathologists replied back, and they helped me maintain, just shine my CV by doing working on CAP protocols, which is College of American Protocols, Pathologist Protocols, and American Society of Hematology. And I am I would say, like, I have all the respect for them, because this is something that helped me gain United States healthcare experience. And Canada, unfortunately, I didn't receive any answers on my emails, and hospitals had no visitor policy, so there was nowhere to go. I also managed to get a job by constantly searching on LinkedIn and Indeed, and I got a job of pathology transcriptionist at a Cambridge Memorial Hospital in Cambridge, and I got to work in pathology department. So what it did for me was that it gave me an insight into a Canadian healthcare system in pathology, and I made very good friends with Canadian pathologists. So with that, I managed to get letters of recommendation from them, which was very exclusive to my profile. And looking back, if I could think, I should have avoided like a lot of self-doubt, and should have had more of self-belief and patience. I wasted a lot of money on expensive courses which were like $2,000, $3,000, which, to be honest, I do not think had any value. In the beginning, all I needed was a refresher or a crash course that could help me identify the important topics for respective exams, and given me that outlook only. And again, at the time, like when everything works out, you just have only few doubts left. So all the challenges that I personally feel we all encounter is, by the time as international medical graduates, or like anybody who moves out of the new country, you find yourself being very old. It's a very energy draining process, and as well as a finances draining process. And it's very difficult to multitask, handling the home, kids, family, and job, and a career, and preparing for the exam at the same time. So I personally feel there are certain myths regarding Canadian exams which we really need to burst, because when I was there in Canada, I talked to a lot of doctors who told me these things, that Canadian exams are very tough, you will not get selected, you cannot attempt both the exams together, it is impossible, it takes years to for people to complete these exams. You'll have to leave a medical career and settle for a physician assistant or a medical scribe. You will never get a specialty of choice. I think some people also told me to do something in project management or work for Uber or Tim Hortons till the time I take 3-4 years to prepare for the exam. So these are the big myths that you need to avoid and main demotivation you need to run away from. Some of the questions that I get, and I need to make videos on this one as well, but I think how much time it takes is usually dependent on your outlook. What is your goal? I don't think studying Toronto notes is enough. You need a retrospective question answer format. You absolutely do not need any course to join. Tricks to attempt in the exam are something that I will make a video on. If you score low on one or both exams, you have to be very cautious because your chances of getting interviews will be taking a hit. And that is the reason if you have less interviews, your chances of matching go less automatically. If you have a gap less than 5 years, that is like a good thing because it is considered as recency of practice. But if you have a gap of more than 5 years, you should have some legitimate reason why it took you a lot of time. Were you working in that time? Did you have a kid? Was there some kind of family urgency? Like some kind of justifiable reason that the other person believes that all this time was put to some fruitful use. And sometimes I do hear like there are free PDFs of UWorld that are getting circulated in the market. I strongly recommend going against them because I'm not paid by UWorld to, this video is not sponsored by anybody, but I definitely believe UWorld is a golden resource. It's a great question bank, and I did it, and that's the only question bank I did for all the exams. So that is why I recommend doing that, because the explanations are excellent. So time taken usually depends on if you're an old or a recent graduate, what kind of baseline knowledge you have, how much retention can you have, and what are your circumstances, because everybody of us has different circumstances. Many of us have kids, we have families, we have a job. It just depends how much time are you able to devote. My timeline was 1 year and I was preparing 7 exams, which includes QE1, NAC Step 1, Step 2 CK, OET and IELTS and Casper, which is an ethics exam. I took my first exam in March 2021 and I finished my exams in October 2021. So a good score in assessments and Q banks is 75 or 77% above. And I would always say run from cheap or free material. If there are free PDFs of UWorld, it's not an authentic resource. Please share money. Do not get those shared PDFs because a lot of questions are missing. You are not taking questions in active exam setting. It doesn't help you. And there is nothing like an exam recall or question discussion because it's strongly prohibited both by MCC and ECFMG. And I strongly discourage candidates to, even ask somebody that what questions are important or something like that. So that is important. But what it requires is for you to first, if you're starting out, you have to determine your eligibility. And please, I just strongly recommend all of you to take like half an hour or 1 hour and go to official websites of Medical Council of Canada and ECFMG. You will understand all the process in detail, and I will probably in future think of making a video on how to navigate through these websites. But it is very important for you to understand those websites and then decide, do you want to give only Canadian exams or US exams or both? Because there are pros and cons to both the things. I'd say that in Canada, ING quota is there. There is a provincial quota. So you're eligible for only limited number of seats. Whereas in US, you are not eligible in a lot of seats. You're eligible in, like, there's no bar. So there is no limit for what seats you are eligible. Always invest in authentic resources and plan your time of the exam accordingly. Make a comprehensive study plan and disciplined routine for question bank questions, and revision time, have that some time which is dedicated for revision, and get exam ready. And then I think that there is time that you will have an email for sure that congratulations, you have matched. So this is part 1 of that video, and I will cover the next part in the second video. Make sure to like, share and subscribe, and thank you so much.